Good day, everyone. I am Claire Mateo, and I will be discussing two-way analysis of variance or two-way ANOVA. Two-way ANOVA is an extension of one-way ANOVA, meaning to say it involves two independent variables. The two independent variables are also called factors. In doing a study that involves two-way analysis of variance, the researcher is able to test the effect of two independent variables or factors on one dependent variables. Also, the interaction effect of the two variables can be tested. Let's have an example so we can further understand two-way ANOVA. Suppose a researcher wishes to test the effects of two different types of plant food and two different types of soil on the growth of certain plants. First, we're going to identify the two independent. When we say independent variable, this variable is not affected or changed by the other variable or dependent variable, but have direct effect on the dependent variable. The two independent variables are the type of plant food and the type of soil, while the dependent variable or the variable affected by the independent variables is the plant growth. Other factors such as water, temperature, sunlight are held constant. To conduct this experiment, the researcher sets up four groups of plants. So why does the researcher needs to set up four groups of plants? If you can remember, it was stated that there are two different types of plant food and two different types of soil type. Assume that the plant food type is designated by the letters A1 and A2 and the soil type by the Roman numerals 1 and 2. So, the four groups are Group 1, plant food A1, soil type 1, Group 2, plant food A1, soil type 2, Group 3, plant food A2, soil type 1, and lastly, Group 4, plant food A2, soil type 2. Groups for such a two-way ANOVA is called treatment groups. Treatment groups are formed by making all possible combinations of the two factors. Just like in our example, the first factor has two levels and the second factor also has two levels. Then, there will be 2 times 2 is equal to 4 different treatment groups. This is a 2 by 2 kind of two-way ANOVA or 2 by 2 ANOVA. There are other kinds of two-way ANOVA aside from the 2 by 2 ANOVA. In this figure, we can see a 3 by 2 design or 3 by 2 ANOVA. The first factor or variable A has 3 levels and the second factor or variable B has 2 levels. This kind of ANOVA has 6 treatment groups. In this figure, we can see a 3 by 3 design or 3 by 3 ANOVA. The first factor or variable A has 3 levels and the second factor or variable B has 3 levels. This kind of ANOVA has 9 treatment groups. Lastly, we have 4 by 3 design or 4 by 3 ANOVA. The first factor or variable A has 4 levels and the second factor or variable B has 3 levels. This kind of ANOVA has 12. The researcher can test an additional hypothesis about the effect of the interaction of the two variables, plant food and soil type, on the plant growth. For example, is there a difference between the growth of plants using plant food A1 and soil type 2 and the growth of plants using plant food A2 and soil type 1? When a difference of this type occurs, the experiment is said to have a significant interaction effect. That is, the types of plant food affect the plant growth differently in different soil types. In other words, interaction effect is the effect that one factor has on the other factor. Interaction effect also represents the combined effects of factors on the dependent variable. If we have interaction effect, we also have main effect. Main effect is the effect of an independent variable on a dependent variable. This involves the independent variable one at a time and interaction in this part is ignored. Like for example, the effect of plant food on the plant growth. Now let's talk about the two-way ANOVA null hypothesis. There are three sets of hypotheses with the two-way ANOVA. Let's look at the hypothesis of our example. So this is the first set of our hypothesis. Null hypothesis. There is no interaction effect between type of plant food use and type of soil used on plant growth. Alternative hypothesis. There is an interaction effect between food type and soil type on plant growth. The second set of hypothesis, null hypothesis, there is no difference in means of heights of plants grown using different foods, while the alternative hypothesis is there is no difference in means of heights of plants grown using different foods. And the last set is the null hypothesis is there is no difference in means of heights of plants grown in different soil types. And the alternative hypothesis is there is difference in means of heights of plants grown in different soil types. As you can see, two-way ANOVA has several null hypotheses. There, there is one for each of the two independent variables and one for the interaction. So if we have two for the independent variables, one for each independent variables, and one for the interaction effect, or the interaction rather, we have we're going to have three sets of hypotheses. The result of a two-way ANOVA are summarized in a two-way table. The table shown is ANOVA summary table for plant food and soil type. We can see in the table the column for the source, and the sources indicated are plant food, soil type, interaction within error, and the total. Other columns are for the sum of squares, degree of freedom, mean square, and F-test. This is the ANOVA summary table. We have the column for source, sum of square, degree of freedom, and F-test. In sources, we have A times B, within error, and total. For the source A, the sum of squares is SS sub A, degree of freedom is A minus 1, mean square is MS sub A, and F test is F sub A. In B, sum of squares is SS sub B, degree of freedom is B minus 1, mean square is MS sub B, and F test is F sub B. And A times B, sum of square is SS sub A times B, degree of freedom is A minus 1 multiplied by B minus 1, mean square is MS sub A times B, F test is F sub A times B, and within error, the sum of squares is SS sub W, degree of freedom is AB times N minus 1, and the mean square is MS sub W. In the table, SS sub A is equal to the sum of squares for factor A. SS sub B is equal to the sum of squares for factor B. SS sub A times B is equal to the sum of squares for interaction. SS sub W is equal to the sum of squares for error term within group. A is equal to the number of levels of factor A. B is equal to the number of levels for factor B. N is equal to the number of subjects in each group. To compute the mean square, let's look at the following. MS sub A is equal to SS sub A over A minus 1. MS sub B is equal to SS sub B over B minus 1. MS sub A times B is equal to SS sub A times B over A minus 1 multiplied by B minus 1. And MS sub W is equal to SS sub W over AB times N minus 1. And to compute the F test, let's look at the following. F sub A is equal to MS sub A over MS sub W with degree of freedom in numerator A minus 1 and degree of freedom in the denominator A, B times N minus 1. F sub B is equal to MS sub B over MS sub W with the degree of freedom in numerator b minus 1 and the degree of freedom in the denominator, ab times n minus 1. F sub a times b is equal to ms sub a times b over ms sub w with the degree of freedom in numerator a minus 1 multiplied by b minus 1. And the degree of freedom in denominator is equal to ab times n minus 1. The assumptions for the two-way analysis of variance are basically the same as those for the one-way ANOVA except for sample size. Assumptions for the two-way ANOVA: the populations from which the samples were obtained must be normally distributed or approximately normally distributed. The samples must be independent. The variances of the populations from which the samples were selected must be equal. The groups must be equal in sample size. That's all. Thank you.